Welcome into Steelers Talk. I'm your host, Jack Sperry, and today is part one of the video that we lovingly refer to as The Beast. It's one of my favorite, if not my favorite, video that I do during the entire NFL calendar year, which is my annual perfect offseason plan for the Pittsburgh Steelers heading into the 2026 offseason. We're going to be covering everything from roster cuts to free agency to trades, all the way cultivating in a 7-round Steelers mock draft. I put a ton of work into this, guys, so I greatly appreciate your guys' support. And make sure you guys click that subscribe button, because if you guys want dedicated Steelers coverage for free on YouTube, this is the place for you. We have over 115,000 Steelers fans that have already subscribed to the channel. And the reason why we have that kind of following, guys, it's the largest individually run Steelers program anywhere here on YouTube, is because we provide you guys consistent and daily videos for free, breaking news coverage every time the Steelers make a big move. We go live twice a week, and all of this content, guys, comes to you 100% free right here on YouTube. So if you don't want to miss anything, make sure you guys click that subscribe button, because we're just getting started here during the 2026 offseason. So on today's show, in part one, here is everything that we're going to be talking about today. We're going to get into some roster cuts. We have one blockbuster trade, one contract restructure, 3 contract extensions, and then we'll get into NFL free agency, all the players that I would be re-signing and then signing an NFL free agency from outside the organization to join the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now, before I get into all my moves here, guys, and before we start with this plan, I want you guys to keep in mind that this is not a predictions video, okay? This is an idealized version of how I would like the Steelers 2026 offseason to play out. This is not something where I'm saying these are the moves the Steelers are necessarily going to make. These are the moves that I said, if I can make these moves, I would absolutely love the offseason to play out this way. So with that said, I will try to keep it somewhat realistic. I'm not going to be like, I'm going to trade a 7th-round pick for Patrick Mahomes. That's the ideal situation. No, I'm going to keep this, and I'm going to try to keep this somewhat realistic within the realm of possibility for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And where we'll start here with this offseason plan is where we start in terms of the cap space that the Pittsburgh Steelers have at their disposal heading into this offseason. And when you account for the $22 additional million that is going to be added to the cap space when the cap officially gets adjusted for this year, the Steelers will be sitting at least around $67 million. And that could get up to $70 million, by the way, if the higher end of the estimate for the cap space increase for the National Football League takes place. But for this particular plan, I'm going to go on the lower side of that to be safe, and we'll start at around $67 million. But I want to get more cap space, guys, so I'm going to make some moves to create some. And we'll start with a couple roster cuts. I'm going to save $10 million by cutting Jonnu Smith and Mason Rudolph. Jonnu, just not worth it, plain and simply. He needs to go. That one's a no-brainer. But then Mason Rudolph, I just want younger backup options at the quarterback position. I don't think that this team's in a position where they should be having an older veteran quarterback in there, and I would just rather have that $3 million at my disposal in free agency this year than keeping him on the roster. I'm also going to restructure DK Metcalf's contract with the cap going up by tens of millions of dollars every single year with the new media rights deals. That money, I think, is better spent in future seasons. So I'm going to restructure DK Metcalf's contract to lower his cap hit for 2026 significantly and save the team nearly $18 million against the cap with that move. Now, this is going to be the hardest part of this offseason plan for me, and I'm going to trade TJ Watt to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in exchange for a pretty decent second-round pick. Tampa Bay runs a 3-4 defense, perfect for TJ Watt. They need edge rusher help. And I just think this offseason, guys, something's going to have to give. Nick Herbig is done being a backup player. He wants to get extended. He wants to be a full-time starter. And if that happens, I'm guessing he's going to tell the Steelers, you can either extend me and start me, or you can trade me away. And I just do not want to let go of a 24-year-old Nick Herbig in favor of a 31-year-old TJ Watt, who has a $42 million cap hit heading into this year. He wasn't very productive as a pass rusher last season. He's not the type of player that can beat double teams anymore. He gets shut down by double teams, and for somebody making $42 million against the cap, he needs to be somebody like a Myles Garrett or a Micah Parsons. $42 million against the cap is quarterback level money. And for me, I think I would rather take the $12 million in additional cap space and the second round pick, and I get to keep Nick Herbig by making this move. Personally, guys, I'm a huge TJ Watt fan. I'm always going to be a fan of his. I love him as a player. I still think he's a really good player, which is why I think you can get a a second-round pick in exchange for him, but sometimes you have to make tough decisions for the betterment of the team, and I would rather do this trade and get a lot of that money off the Steelers' books in future seasons and, bite the bullet here than keep him continue to regress, and then we're on the hook for the tens of millions of dollars that is still left on his massive contract. So let me know what you guys think down there in the comments section. Would you accept this trade to send TJ Watt to the Buccaneers in exchange for a second-round pick? I think this is a pretty realistic trade return for a guy like TJ Watt at his age and with his contract. I think a second-round pick is fair for both sides. So give me an A for accept or D for decline. This will be the pinned comment on today's show. So in just a second here, I'm going to tell you about our sponsor today at Prize Picks. Well, I tell you about our sponsor today. Give me an A for accept or D for decline. With that, let's have a word from our sponsor today at Prize Picks. Shoot your shot on Prize Picks and get $50 instantly in lineups when you play your first $5. That's right. Prize Picks is now giving you $50 in lineups when you sign up and play your first $5. Prize Picks makes every dunk, every dime, and every board that much more exciting this basketball season. So don't miss this chance to get started on America's #1 app for sports picks. Prize Picks is super simple to play. You just pick more than or less than on at least 2 to 6 player stat projections. If you get your picks right, you could cash in. Pick from all your favorite sports, anything from basketball to baseball, hockey, UFC, soccer, college basketball, tennis, golf, and even esports. You guys can get it done all right now on Prize Picks. And a new feature from Prize Picks that I absolutely love is early payouts. If your player gets off to a hot start, you now have the option to cash out those winnings before the game even finishes. So download the Prize Picks app today and use code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5. That's code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, it's good to be right. So after all the moves that I make in terms of the trade and in the restructure and the cuts, that saves us quite a bit of money. And now we're going into NFL free agency and, getting extensions done with about $107 million projected for the Pittsburgh Steelers heading into this offseason, which is plenty enough to fill out this roster with a lot of quality talent. So before we get into the extensions and free agency, I want to let you guys know my personal rule for contracts when it comes to this perfect offseason plan. I cannot do anything less than what the Spotrac or Pro Football Focus market value is at this current point in time is projected at. So if you think any of the figures that I use on today's show are unrealistic, I might even agree with you, but at least Spotrac and Pro Football Focus are projecting that at this point in time. Okay, so I'm going to start with Nick Herbig and extending him, keeping him here in Pittsburgh. If I'm trading away TJ Watt, you bet your sweet ass I'm keeping Nick Herbig here for the long haul. 4 years, $56 million total over the course of that contract. Right now, that's the Spotrac market value. So if you disagree with that, you think he's worth more than that, I would actually agree with you on that. But right now, they just project him at $14 million per season. So I'm going to take advantage of that in this idealized version of the Steelers offseason. I think that would be a beautiful move for the Pittsburgh Steelers to pull off. Then Joey Porter Jr., I'm also going to extend for 4 years. I think he's a lockdown #1 man-to-man corner, and I'm going to pay him like it, $25 million per season, $100 million total over 4 years. I think he earned it with his play last year. I thought he should have been an All-Pro, and he's still super young with those go-go gadget long arms. I'm happy to pay him this contract, which, by the way, isn't even the tops of the tops in the league. I mean, it's top 5 in the league, which I think he's earned. And over the course of this contract, by the end of it, he's actually going to be more of a steal for the Pittsburgh Steelers, in my opinion. Then I'm also going to extend the Wizard of Boz, Chris Boswell, give him a 2-year extension along with the 1 year he currently has left on his deal. I'm going to give him $12.8 million over the course of those 2 years. Okay, so those are the 3 contract extensions that I am making on today's offseason plan. Then we can get to the players that I would be re-signing. Now, if you've been watching the channel lately, you guys know that I prefer to bring back Aaron Rodgers as this team's QB1 for a season here to kind of, get the organization its bearings at the quarterback position, give McCarthy a chance to work with some younger quarterbacks and develop them behind an all-time great quarterback. I think Rodgers gives this team the best possible chance to succeed and potentially go on a run. If they can put together a really good defense and, the offensive line continues to grow and they get him some actual good receiving weapons, something that he didn't have last year, I think Rodgers could do something very similar to what Tom Brady did in his age 43 season and get, the Steelers into Super Bowl contention attention, just like Brady did with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in his age 43 season. I still think Rodgers has the cerebral football mind that you need for a Mike McCarthy offense. I still think he's got the arm talent. I think the players in the locker room want him back for those reasons, and he's also super cheap, just $10 million. You're not going to find a quarterback of this caliber against the cap for that little. I think it's the best option for the Pittsburgh Steelers if he wants to come back. So true or false? Let me know what you guys think down there in the comments. Aaron Rodgers is the best option for the Pittsburgh Steelers at QB1 in 2026. Give me a T if you think that statement is true, or type F if you think that statement is false. F Ponzi for the graphic mistake there, but F for false, T for true. Let me know what you guys think down there in the comment section. Now let's get into Isaac Seumalo, who I'd bring back on a 1-year, $8 million deal. That's his current market value projection. And I think that it's important to bring him back for me because he's the elder statesman in the offensive line for the Pittsburgh Steelers. You've got a lot of really young players, Dylan Cook and Broderick Jones. One of those guys is going to be your starting left tackle, then your entire right side of the O-line is going into their third year. Okay, Seumalo is that, veteran that everyone can turn to as the voice in the locker room along the offensive line. And for just $8 million, this is a steal for a player as good as Isaac Seumalo is. Plus, you keep continuity on the offensive line. Then I'll get to James Pierre. And actually, right now, I could have just given him $1.8 million because that's what Spoke Track is projecting for him. I'm going to give him something a little bit more, appropriate in my opinion. $5 million per season for a number 2 corner. In my opinion, more realistically, it might be $10 million per season. But I'm going to take advantage here of Spotrac and Pro Football Focus being behind on the times here. James Pierre was an absolutely fantastic cover corner for the Steelers defense last year. And if the Steelers can bring him back at a decent price tag, I absolutely want to do that. Then I'm also going to bring back Aaron Rodgers' guy, Kenneth Gainwell, to pair him back up with Jaylen Warren. I think Warren and Gainwell were one of the best running back duos in football. It was the strength of the Steelers offense last year, and right now Spotrac's allowing me to bring him back for 2 years, $8 million. You look at Fox Sports, Pro Football Focus, ESPN. Nobody is expecting Kenneth Gainwell to be like a top 5 running back on the market. I think everyone's expecting Gainwell to get a lot of money in free agency, but with all the different high-level running backs hitting the market this year, I actually think Gainwell doesn't make all that much, and I think the Steelers end up being the highest bidder for Kenneth Gainwell's services. So I'll bring him back, and then 2 kind of reserve players, rotational guys that I'll bring back as well. Daniel Ekuale, I know he's coming off a major injury, but 1 year, $2 million for somebody that's a very stout run defender. I'll do that every day of the week. And then Connor Hayward, tight end fullback hybrid there that Aaron Rodgers likes, bring him back on the vet minimum. Those are 2 deals that I would do as well. In terms of Broderick Jones, you have to make a decision as to whether or not you're going to accept or decline the 5th-year option. For me, I'm going to decline that 5th-year option. It's a pretty easy answer for me. I'm not even confident he's going to be a starting offensive lineman for the Steelers next year. Dylan Cook, I thought, played better than him on film towards the end of last year, and I do think that that's going to be a competition heading into Latrobe next year that Broderick may lose. So it's going to be an interesting year for Broderick. They might move him to left guard if Seumalo leaves in free agency. There's a lot of different possibilities there for Broderick, but I just don't see any scenario where the Steelers accept his 5th-year option and it being a good idea. So before we get into the rest of today's show and I go into NFL free agency, bring in some players from outside the organization to join Aaron Rodgers and crew here in Pittsburgh. Click that thumbs up icon if you enjoy and you're enjoying today's show. Of course, this is a 2-part off-season plan here, guys. So if you appreciate the time and the effort we put into this channel, make sure you guys click that thumbs up icon if you haven't already. All right, so now let's start by getting Aaron Rodgers, probably his preferred free agent wide receiver, Romeo Doubs. Right now, the market value is projecting 2 years, $24 million total. That's just $12 million a season. And for somebody that is a really good separator, really good route runner, can make some tough catches down the sideline, and can start the season as this team's number 2 receiver that also has established chemistry with Aaron Rodgers, I think Romeo Doubs, is a good fit for what the Pittsburgh Steelers are looking for. I'm going to go very wide receiver heavy, by the way, guys, in my mock draft for this perfect offseason plan in part 2, just so you guys know that. But Romeo Doubs, I think, is probably probably the guy I'd go with in free agency, especially for the price tag. But then I'll get a nose tackle here, a legit one, not Keanu Benton who gets driven backwards and can't anchor. I'm going to go with DJ Reader, one of the best nose tackles of the last half decade in the National Football League. Took him maybe a little bit of a step back last year in Detroit, but he's still a stout run defender, can still get after quarterbacks a bit, and you don't need him to be DJ Reader of old here in Pittsburgh. You've got a lot of good pass rushers on this defense. You just need somebody that can hold their gap in the middle. DJ Reader, more than capable of doing that for a projected 1-year, $4.5 million contract. Then I'll go get Alohi Gilman to pair with Deshaun Elliott and Jalen Ramsey in this kind of 3-safety, kind of a big nickel package that I'm expecting Patrick Graham to deploy. Gilman has played in a lot of these kind of big nickel style systems before in Los Angeles and then recently with the Baltimore Ravens. I think that he would fit perfectly with what Patrick Graham is trying to do here. 2 years, $8.5 million, I think is a good deal. Then I'll go with the punt god here, bringing him in to pair with Chris Boswell. We're going to have the best special teams in the National Football League, or especially when you're in Acrisure Stadium. That's a tough stadium to kick in. So you need guys that know what they're doing, both in place kicker and with your punter. I think Corliss Waitman has done a pretty decent job for Pittsburgh over the last several years, but arises probably the best in football, so I'm going to pay him like it. 4 years, $16 million to bring in the punt god. Then I'll bring in a backup quarterback that's worked with Mike McCarthy before and looked pretty good in the preseason for the Chargers last year in Trey Lance, former top 3 picks, a lot of arm talent, showed off some awesome touch throws in the preseason last year, and you can get him for a 2-year, $6 million deal. He could be a potential long-term option at the quarterback position after a year working with McCarthy again, and then a year working under Aaron Rodgers, and provide some long-term competition for Will Howard in the quarterback room here in Pittsburgh at a pretty decent price tag. Now make sure you guys tune in for part 2 of this perfect offseason plan for my 7-round Steelers mock draft. I'm just going to spoil it for you guys. We have multiple trade-up scenarios in that mock draft to pair with this perfect offseason plan that I've laid out for you guys today. But make sure you guys click that subscribe button if you haven't already to never miss a video from us here at Steelers Talk. I greatly appreciate all of your guys' support. Till next time, guys, here we go, Steelers.